Today, if you were to start your own computer company, you'd fall into one of three categories. You could build a Windows PC by having Windows as your operating system, which is what the majority of computer companies do. Or your second option would be to go with Linux, the open source and free choice. The problem with going with Linux is that it is the least popular operating system, and because of that, many popular applications and games do not support it, so it wouldn't be a wise choice. But an even less wise choice would be to follow the model of the third category, which is building everything from scratch. Unless you are a company called Apple, that would be a catastrophic choice. If you build your own operating system, it wouldn't run any popular software, and it would also cost a lot of money to develop. The early 80s were similar, but instead of Windows being the only option for computer companies who wanted to be successful, the standard then was IBM. These were the early days of the computer revolution. It was a lot more plausible to build your own PC with its own software because there wasn't a standard set yet. That was until IBM stepped in. IBM was the giant of the computer industry, and when it released its own version of a PC, it instantly became the most popular PC, and it set the market standard. As I have discussed in a previous video, the first IBM PC was built with off-the-shelf parts, so the physical copying of the IBM hardware wasn't all that difficult. The advantage copycats had was Microsoft. Microsoft wrote the very first operating system for the IBM PC called MS-DOS, so if you wanted to build an IBM clone, it was as simple as licensing the operating system on IBM computers from Microsoft and get the same parts used in the IBM PC from computer parts manufacturers. But there was still one problem. Licensing the operating system meant that your computer would be able to run almost all applications that the IBM PC could run, but an emphasis on almost all. Some applications built for the IBM PC wouldn't run properly or run at all on other computers, even on the computers that ran the very same operating system as the IBM PC. The reason for this was because of the BIOS, which was quite literally the only part of the IBM PC that was proprietary. BIOS, or the Basic Input-Output System, is the program a computer's microprocessor uses to start the computer system after it's powered on. It also manages data flow between the computer's operating system and attached devices such as the hard disk, video adapter, keyboard, mouse, and printer. Clone PCs had a different BIOS. Some software wouldn't run. This was a problem because the holy grail of computing at the time was to build a PC exactly like the IBM, but cheaper. Sure, you could market it as 80%, 90% or 99% compatible with IBM, but if it wasn't fully compatible, people would rather play it safe and buy the IBM PC, which was the market standard. The BIOS code was published in one of IBM's user manuals, but it was protected by copyright. Some companies tried to just blatantly copy the BIOS, but they were sued out of business by IBM. So then, how does a computer company go about creating the perfect clone legally? That is the question the founders of Compaq had to answer. Rod Canyon, Bill Murtaugh, and Jim Harris were the founders of Compaq. Before starting Compaq, they worked at Texas Instruments. One day they realized that they were bored of the normal day-to-day corporate life and decided they wanted to start a company. Initially they thought of starting a Mexican food restaurant. They had talked about starting one before and they all really liked Mexican food. But thankfully for them, they came to their senses and realized that the restaurant industry was very competitive and they also had zero expertise on how to run a restaurant. The light bulb moment came when Rod Canyon realized something. He was busy writing business plans at home for ideas that the three came up with, but it was inefficient and inconvenient. He would write these business plans, print them out, and bring them along with him to show Bill Murtaugh and Jim Harris. And if anything needed changing, he would have to go back to the house, edit the plan, print it out again, and go to them with an edited plan. He realized that if the IBM PC he was using at his house was portable, he wouldn't have to go through this hassle of going back and forth. Instead, he could simply carry his computer with him. So he told the other guys about the idea of a portable IBM PC, and the trio got to work. They contacted a designer to design the machine, and now all that was left was to build it. And boy was that going to be a difficult task. As mentioned before, all the hardware parts that were used to make the IBM PC were all off-the-shelf parts, so building an IBM PC clone was a matter of just assembling the right parts in a way that fits the design of your computer. The operating system the IBM PC ran was also not theirs. It was built by Microsoft, and thus anyone could license it from Microsoft. The major stumbling block was the BIOS. Compaq had to figure out a way to copy the IBM PC BIOS without copying it, because if they just copied it as it was, they would have most likely have been sued by IBM and put out of business. This is where the art of reverse engineering comes in. An engineer at Compaq got a hold of the IBM manual that had all the code that was contained in the BIOS. He pored over it and wrote a detailed brief of specifications that described all the functions and operations the code performed, and he gave those specifications to a separate Compaq team that would then attempt to build their own BIOS from the ground up using the brief of specifications. Technically, this was not illegal. Yes, the IBM BIOS code was copyrighted, meaning it couldn't be copied or used without IBM's permission. But the Compaq strategy used a genius loophole. The person who read and wrote the specifications of the BIOS code, which was copyrighted, could not have any involvement in the coding of the Compaq BIOS. In case IBM decided to sue them, the person who wrote the specifications simply just handed over the book with all the specifications of the IBM PC BIOS, and since the engineers who coded Compaq's BIOS never saw IBM's BIOS, they were not violating any rules. They were just simply following a brief of specifications that detailed exactly how the IBM PC BIOS worked without actually having seen its code. After months of coding and $1 million later, the Compaq BIOS was finally done. The Compaq team had just achieved the holy grail of early 80s computing by building a PC that was exactly like the IBM but cheaper. It was virtually guaranteed to be a success.
It is the only personal computer, portable or otherwise, that is truly compatible with the IBM personal computer. I repeat, Compaq is the only personal computer that is truly compatible with the IBM PC.
The Compaq PC was launched in November 1982. In their first year of business, they set a business record for the largest first-year sales in history, which was $111 million. By the end of 1983, Compaq had sold 53,000 computers. Rumors began to spread that IBM was going to release their own portable computer, but when IBM eventually released a portable computer, it was not successful. It had very poor sales. There were distinct differences in quality between the Compaq Portable and the IBM Portable. The Compaq Portable was more well built and was of higher quality. The IBM Portable was so bad that it wouldn't even run all of the popular software programs. The software people used to run on their IBM PCs wouldn't even run on the IBM Portable computer, but it would run perfectly on the Compaq Portable computer. This caused a lot of turmoil at IBM. They couldn't understand why a little company called Compaq was out marketing and outselling them. So despite IBM's best efforts, Compaq kept growing and growing, expanding from 6 employees when they started to more than 1,000 just 2 years later. In 1984, their sales hit $329 million. In 1985, they hit $503 million. Because of how dominant IBM was in the 80s computer industry, they always got first access to all Intel chips. Even more than demanding to be the first company to be given access to new Intel chips, they demanded Intel create exclusive chips that were only available to IBM. Intel rejected IBM's demands and stated that they wanted to sell chips to every computer manufacturer that wanted them. In 1986, using cutting-edge Intel chips, Compaq launched the Desk Pro 386, which at the time was the fastest and most advanced computer on the market. This caught IBM by surprise, because they were used to getting first access to Intel chips, but the Intel 386 chip was offered to everyone at the same time, and Compaq beat IBM to the punch by being the first to release a computer featuring the advanced 386 chip. With the release of this computer, Compaq went from being an IBM cloning company to leading the entire computer industry, including IBM. The Desk Pro 86 brought more success to Compaq, with sales topping $1 billion in 1987. They were one of the fastest growing companies in history, and IBM wasn't at all pleased with their success. IBM realized that it was losing a ton of market share to clones of its IBM PC and began suing companies left, right and center that manufactured these clones. Rumors began to spread that IBM was going to sue Compaq. IBM had thousands of patents and an army of lawyers. Given enough time, they would have found a patent violation that Compaq was guilty of. IBM and Compaq eventually settled, with Compaq agreeing to pay $130 million to settle the lawsuit. The threat of IBM was seemingly gone after the settlement. That was until April 2nd, 1987. On that day, IBM released its IBM Personal System 2, the second generation of the IBM PC. The IBM Personal System 2 had better technical specs. It utilized a system design called microchannels, which meant that it was able to do more than one task at once, like printing and simultaneously allowing you to type documents. Most computers at the time were only capable of doing one task at a time. But the problem was that while the IBM Personal System 2 was compatible with IBM's own software, it wasn't compatible with other popular software applications developed by other companies. Because of this, about $12 billion worth of software that had been bought by companies and individuals simply didn't run on the IBM PC. IBM abandoning the compatible ecosystem that had made computers popular was a big mistake. They had a lot of angry customers, and they had just given the rest of the computer industry a chance to plot a computer future that didn't involve them.
A revolt of the clones this morning. The 9 personal computer companies whose business has always followed IBM's design.
Compaq CEO Rod Canyon organized a meeting of 9 companies. Amongst these companies was Intel, Microsoft, and 6 of the biggest PC manufacturers at the time, except for IBM. The reason for this meeting was to discuss a future for the industry that did not include IBM. They came up with the Extended Industry Standard Architecture, which was a framework of the collaboration of all these companies to build compatible computer systems that were better than IBM's PC. It was a response to IBM's microchannel computer. No longer could IBM dictate to the computer industry what the standard of a PC is, rather the computer industry had set its own standard. The clones were changing strategy. They no longer wanted to try to be like IBM. They were now going their own way. In 1989, following the announcement of the EISA, Compaq's earnings hit an all-time high. In the same year, IBM's earnings dropped by a third to an all-time low. Remember, Compaq was started to provide a cheaper alternative to the IBM PC. That was their only advantage. This strategy proved to be very successful over many years, up until international computer manufacturers began selling their PCs in America. International companies, namely those from Japan like Toshiba, were building PCs of higher quality at a cheaper price. Compaq simply couldn't compete with these companies. In 1991, Compaq posted a loss of almost $70 million. The loss was followed by Compaq firing 1,400 employees, and later that year, Compaq CEO and co-founder Rod Canyon was fired. Despite these setbacks, by 1994, Compaq surpassed IBM in PC sales.